Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next and final session of the day, hosted by the International Air Transport Association. This is a workshop on how to improve mobility assistance services, which is part one of a two-day workshop. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for part two. The topic of this workshop is very important and relevant for anyone who is involved in or interested in mobility assistance services, whether as a passenger, as a stakeholder, or as a staff member. Mobility assistance services is a key aspect of accessibility and inclusion in air travel, and it can make a significant difference in the travel experience and satisfaction of passengers who need it. However, there are also many challenges and issues that affect the quality and efficiency of mobility assistance services, such as lack of advanced notification, the inconsistent use of codes, and the one-size-fits-all approach. In this panel, we will explore these challenges and how they can be overcome through better communication, shared accountability, and correct use of codes. We will also learn from the best practices and experiences of our panelists. So, let's welcome our panelists and get started with the discussion. I'd like to welcome Ms. Mouza Saeed Rumaihi, Special Handling Manager, dnata. Mr. Conor Halpin, co-founder and Director of Business Development, PRMAssist Ireland. I'd like to welcome once again Ms. Hilal Kahraman, Passenger Experience Design Chief, Istanbul Airport, Turkey. Mr. Xavier Mascarell, Customer Accessibility Strategy Manager, British Airways from the UK. Mr. Mark D. Laurentiis, Director, Passenger Experience on the Autism Project, Italian Civil Aviation Authority. This will be moderated by my friend and colleague, Ms. Linda Ristagno, Assistant Director, External Affairs from the International Air Transport Association. Thank you, dear.
Thank you. Where I speak here? Okay, shall I use this one? So first of all, thank you so much for having us here, and thank you so much for staying. I just take this. This session is the last session of the day, and it's actually a workshop where we want to talk to you about some of the challenges that we have in terms of aviation, and especially in terms of assistance service. Assistance service intended as any kind of service that we provide to the passengers when they travel from the airport, from one airport to the other, and on board of the aircraft. We will have two workshops today. The first is on wheelchair assistance. We want to specifically to tackle, for this time, wheelchairs and mobility aids. So the first workshop that is today is on wheelchair assistance. The second one will be on mobility aids, and we will illustrate you about the safe loading of mobility aids in the cargo compartment of the aircraft. So I hope that you will be back tomorrow for the second part of the workshop. But let's start. Doesn't work? Okay. So, why are you here? So first of all, what we will cover today is to understand what is assistance and how it works in aviation, what we mean with assistance. Identifying who are the passengers requiring wheelchair assistance. I will provide you with a very brief overview of some of the outcomes of the IATA Global Passenger Survey that is run every year, and is a survey that are questions that are asked specifically to passengers. And since few years, we have sections also on accessibility. Then we will showcase you why assistance service cannot be a long and sustainable solution in the long term, wheelchair assistance specifically. You will receive best practices information from my colleagues, speakers, and also their practical experiences, and then at the end we will identify some solutions and key actions as well. So just to introduce the workshop, why accessibility is important. It has been shared many times today. It is important because through accessibility we provide equal access to every person for their own participation full in society and the economy. There have been many mentions about that it makes business sense. It's true, it makes business sense. My friend Eric Leap mentioned why it makes business sense and why it is the right thing to do and why we have to take this right. So there is today an estimation of 1.3 billion of persons with disabilities around the world, and not all of these persons are traveling. We expect this number, actually the United Nations expect this number to increase with the population growing old in many parts of the world. But despite aviation is trying to improve, and we are on a journey. We haven't completed our journey, but we are on a journey. There are different regulations that are contradicting each other. This also has been mentioned today, and what we are trying to do is we are trying to find some consistency in those regulatory requirements. Regulatory requirements that ask aviation industry to apply certain criteria that are not valid at destination. So what are the issues of these different regulatory requirements? There is a misunderstanding of the cost and operational impact of accessibility in the aviation business. There is a fragmentation of disability laws applied to transport, and this will only get worse if we don't take this right today. Why it will get worse? Because accessibility is into a UN convention, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. And this convention talks to society, but also to transportation and infrastructures. There is a trend that we see to have reputational regulation in the sense that everything that does not go right has to be made right immediately. But there are some constraints with that. And then other issues that we have. This slide is important because it's an overview of the Global Passenger Survey, IATA Global Passenger Survey of 2023. We run this survey every year asking passengers different questions because we want to know how we are dealing, if we are getting this right or not, with all passengers. Since few years, we managed to get into the Global Passenger Survey a section that is dedicated to accessibility. So according to the survey of this year, there is higher satisfaction for special assistance services in 2023 because there are also more passengers who are requiring special assistance. When those passengers require special assistance, it is likely to be wheelchair assistance, and this is the scope of this workshop of today. But why it is likely to be wheelchair assistance? It's because it's one-size-fits-all solution. Does everyone wants to be seated on a wheelchair? And then we see that difference from one year to the other is almost 30%. So every year, the number of passengers requiring assistance while traveling in aviation is increasing of 30% compared to previous year. These wheelchair assistance requests are specific, are impacting all regions, but there are more specific in certain jurisdictions. We started to identify this issue and why this was an issue already in 2019, before COVID came. And we went to have similar workshops, a bit bigger, workshops of 1 day and a half, more or less, and two locations that we had identified as critical locations. So we went to India, to the UK, and to the United States to understand why the number of assistance requests is wheelchair assistance requests is increasing. Why we did this? Because we were getting feedback from persons with disabilities that they were not getting the service that they wanted. So with this is what we got out in 2018 and 2019, why passengers require assistance. So that is wheelchair assistance. The first was age. So population is growing old. Our parents are not able sometimes to navigate busy airports, so they need a way to get through. The distance, same thing, it goes with the age. So some passengers are unable to walk long distances. Language challenges, so not everyone speaks the language of the airport of origin or destination. Priority access, where security immigration is slowing down, or also at departure, border controls are busy. So for having a better priority access, for temporary disability or other medical conditions, and finally, wayfinding, worried of being lost at the airport. Now, wayfinding is something that can be addressed by looking at some standards related to indications. But because actually this is an issue, I myself got lost in Mumbai and I traveled the world. So what passengers did not tell us was if they requested assistance at the time of booking, and this is what we are going to cover today. Did they show up at the airport? So if there was no advance notice, if they didn't know that they had to ask advance notice, if these passengers were disabled or just elders who needed to support navigating the airport, or what are the codes associated with their assistance request? Did they ask for a wheelchair or it was allocated to them? Are industry codes used or not? Is wheelchair assistance the only service offered, as I mentioned before? And passengers need a different kind of assistance service? And just an indication of which are the codes that are increasingly in use. And with this, I conclude my very brief introduction and immediately give the word to my colleague Xavier from British Airways, who is going to bring us to the practices and the findings that they got. Thank you, Xavier.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I just wanted to say it's my first time in Dubai. And I'm loving the hospitality, I'm loving the venue. But what I'm loving the most is to have so many people in a room, so engaged and so passionate about accessibility, like most of us in the aviation industry are. And for me, having flown last night from London, landing in Dubai, seeing the experience the customers coming off the British Airways flight had at your airport in Dubai here was just amazing. Assistance service, the signage, so everything that we're talking about, especially with Hilal and Istanbul airport, just fills me with hope, and that's what we can strive for. And for us at British Airways, what we do in terms of accessibility is we talk about the journey, not a destination. I think one member of the panel before mentioned about it's not about perfection. If somebody says they are fully accessible, alarm bells. And that's exactly the same approach that we take at British Airways when it comes to accessibility. But without any further ado, I just wanted to share with you some slides about how we at British Airways try and help our customers in terms of facilitating the relationship between us, the service providers, and the airports that we fly. And if you think of London Heathrow is our main hub. We also have an operation at Gatwick, and we also have an operation at London City Airport. But if you think of London Heathrow is very similar to Dubai. It's a hub airport. We have massive amount of customers coming in from some other continent and flying out to another continent. And this is where we're striving to make our efforts. And as I've put on this slide for you here, how do we make air travel accessible in a way that customers feel that the safety is not jeopardized, that they have comfort, that they get to enjoy the flying experience just like anybody else, but most importantly, that they have a dignified experience, because this is what's critically important for the community. Which button is it? It's the big one. Perfect. So Linda was introducing the point of advance notice. We aviation geeks sometimes use language that is, very precise, very niche. So in terms of advance notice, what we're talking about here is, do customers tell us that they're coming? Do customers tell us that they're coming with certain needs? And I'll just give you an analogy, for instance. Those of you who might be vegan, those of you who might have some religious requirements, might ask for a Muslim meal, might ask for a medical meal, like gluten-free or low-calorie. We have this information from customers, and that helps us prepare in our catering units. How many meals do we prepare for every flight? It helps us prepare so that when we can put the meal on board, the customer has the meal that they need. Pre-notification, as the regulation calls it in the UK and in Europe, is what we're talking about with advance notice. Customers can tell us in advance, should tell us in advance, because if they do that, it helps us help them on their journey. And within 48 hours, at least, they should tell us. And that really helps us tell the airport, the special assistance services, gather the forces, rally the troops, get all the equipment in place. We do similarly with our operation. If you think of baggage, when we are going to check in online with BA, you will be asked, are you going to check in any bags? That's critically important for us, because the more we know about how many customers are going to check in a bag, the better we can plan our resources, our containers, and everything under the wing as the aircraft is standing around. Also for wheelchairs, if we have 3 powered wheelchairs, we containerize them. So if we know they're coming, we will prepare those 3 containers so that the wheelchair is loaded accordingly and the flight leaves on time, and the customer, when they get to the other end, they have the wheelchair they need. So for us, pre-notification is really important, and we've done different things at British Airways to help achieve this objective. And for people that book directly with us, we've got our website, and on the website we've got all the information about the types of assistance you can get. We explain what the type of assistance is. We recommend that you tell us at least 48 hours in advance. But most importantly, we've got 2 channels to do it. You can either do it yourself, or you can actually call us and have a chat with a human being who understands your needs, who understands your complexities, who understands probably your fears, because you want to be reassured. You can speak to this individual. And this is why we have an accessibility team in Newcastle for our UK customers. If you are an international customer, you can in advance tell us as well that you want to speak to one of them, and they will call you back, and you can do that via the website. So with the website as well, the information is as clear as possible. We were very happy with a recent audit that the UK regulator did on our website, where they found that not only the content was adhering to guidelines, the WCAG guidelines, but also the way that the information was displayed was making perfect sense for them in terms of people with disabilities. So that's for direct bookers, but luckily for us, we don't sell all our tickets ourselves. We have relationships with the trade, and we have also offered quite a lot of information for them. But before I jump onto the trade, the self-serve and booking assistance online via Manage My Booking. So you book the ticket, and then you tell us through Manage My Booking what you need. But most recently, we found out that some customers were getting confused. And what we did, we went to speak to our customer relationship marketing team. And you know when you get this famous email to say, yo, you're flying with us, do you want to buy a seat? Do you want to buy more baggage? We also sent the email saying, do you need assistance? Do you need a helping hand? And if so, tell us now. And then we send these emails well in advance of travel. But what we also do is if you have requested assistance, and Linda was highlighting the 3 wheelchair codes that we have, different types of service, we will send an email in advance of travel to say, we understand you requested this service. Is this correct? And we give customers another opportunity to rectify if they've given us the wrong information so that we don't let them down when they come and fly with us. As I was saying to you before, when it comes to the trade, we have huge trade agreements with certain organizations, and those people will have a dedicated account manager that will be supporting the one-to-one conversation. But for those smaller ones that do not qualify for this account manager, we also have a couple of tools available for them. And one of the tools is obviously the ba.com website that we have open to everybody, but we have a trade website dedicated especially for them, highlighting all the processes, highlighting all the procedures, trying to give them as much information to empower them to put the right codes into the booking. Because if they don't, we will suffer and so will the customer. So it's all about the supply chain working together to make sure that we have the right information in advance for these customers. They also have a contact us capability, so they can start a conversation with our agents to get the information right into the system. I'm now going to talk a little bit more. We've talked about the pre-stage of booking and getting the information. I would also like to share with you some of the work that we have done with Heathrow Airport. I look after the strategy. I have a fantastic colleague at British Airways that looks after the operation in the airport. Luckily for me, I'm not alone. I probably wouldn't say 50 people, like Roland was saying from Royal Caribbean before, but there is a community of colleagues at British Airways looking after accessibility and embedding it into each part of the business. But a piece of work that we recently did since we came back from the pandemic, and this is all about collaboration. This is all about the supply chain talking to each other and joining forces. We have identified certain pain points through the customer journey at the airport. Hilal will probably understand, you will understand as well, Mouza. And for instance, check-in is extremely important. That's the first instance where the customer will come and say, I've got a wheelchair, for instance, or this is the type of service that I need. So we have collocated our check-in facilities with a special service assistance team that Heathrow Airport Limited employ. And then we also have identified that connections. Remember we mentioned about Dubai and Heathrow being very similar in terms of hub airports. So flight connections, it's really important that we have collaboration with Heathrow Airport and the assistance provider, Wilson James. And that functionality is working really well, not only in connections, but also in arrivals. So that last critical piece of collecting your hand baggage after you've cleared immigration, and then you're being left to go and take whatever transport. And it's very interesting to see how we were talking about intermodal transport. It was very interesting to see how the journey doesn't just stop once you land. And the last piece that we have done with Heathrow Airport Limited and the assistance provider at Heathrow has been to, in our operations control center, they sit with us. So when we know an aircraft is coming from, say, Delhi, and we have in the range of, say, 60 wheelchairs coming, and we know that we have to send the resources there, where is that plane going to be parked? Are we parking it as close as possible to where the assistance services work so that they don't have to waste any time through the journey, through the terminals? So it's trying to coordinate all the activity to support better service delivery. Just a couple of more examples where we have collaborated, and this was well before my time, but I thought it was wise sharing it with you all to exemplify what we're discussing here. So back in, after the work that IATA did in 2018 and 2019, we did a trial at Heathrow Airport where we looked at the proposition that we have at the airport and how we work together with the provider and Heathrow Airport. And the objective was very much to run a trial where we would offer something else. So rather than offer a wheelchair service? Could we come up with something else that customers would be happier with and that was easier for us to manage as a set of stakeholders, as a supply chain? So this was very much about creating a basic assistance service, which was about local languages, which was about group activities, so group movement through the terminal, also the wheelchair service. There was a survey run with these customers, and we gathered their feedback. The trial was completed on a set of routes over several days. Some of the routes were Larnaca. Larnaca from the UK is one of those destinations that a lot of elderly travel to. We had Dubai, was one of the routes. We had a couple of Indian routes, and also a couple of West African routes. On top of that, there was also an element of the basic service being with a porter who would help you with your baggage, your hand baggage. The feedback was extraordinary, actually, and I won't give you too many details of how it all run, but ultimately, the insights we got were extremely valuable for us as an organization, not only for us as an airline, but also for Heathrow Airport. It was very clear that 20% of customers who had booked assistance only did so because they needed help with navigating the airport. I don't know how many of you have been at T5. I've been at Dubai, and I landed quite late yesterday, and I have traveled, and I almost got lost, but because I was so tired. So my cognitive ability was quite diminished. And Heathrow is very similar to that. It can be quite daunting for people to travel through an airport. Especially imagine if you're carrying bags as well. 48% of customers who had requested assistance would have actually preferred not to use a wheelchair. And this was even more stronger for customers that came from Dubai, interestingly. So I thought I'd share that little tip there. But most importantly, when customers were asked, 84% of them said they would choose the basic assistance service, which had nothing to do with the actual wheelchair itself being provided. It was more about meeting their needs as they expected. When you look at satisfaction, you probably have all heard about NPS, Net Promoter Score, where on a scale from 0 to 10, you ask customers how likely they are to recommend you as a service provider. And you have the spectrum of 9 and 10 being your promoters, 0 to 6 being your detractors, and then 7 and 8 are your passives. Interestingly, when we did the NPS score for the basic assistance service, twice as many more passengers thought that they would take the basic service, they would recommend the basic service, than customers that had had the traditional assistance service with a wheelchair. So it just came to prove to us that one size doesn't fit all. We've talked about it already in a couple of panels. Disabilities come in many different shapes and forms, but accessibility is not just about disability. It's about language. It's about many other things. So how do we incorporate that into our day-to-day as an airline and as an airport? And last but not least, I've tried to put here a global map because whilst we have a hub operation at Heathrow, we fly globally. And for me, there are two pieces here. One is accountability. Us as an airline need to take accountability to provide as many tools for customers to tell us what they need, hence enhancing the advanced notification, hence enhancing the experience they will get when they fly and go through the airport. But ultimately, we should all work together, and this is where the collaboration piece comes in. We want to deliver memorable experiences. We're all in the travel industry, we're all in the tourism industry. Leisure market for airlines is really huge now after the pandemic. So how do we all work together to make sure that we have memorable, consistent, and sustainable experiences for everyone across the globe? Because the world is there for everyone to enjoy. That's all for me. So I'll hand over, I think, to Mark.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Xavier. And now with you, we have covered the first part that is about communication and proposing the customers what do they need. And just to what we are talking about today and what Xavier was mentioning, asking those customers who don't really have a disability but need basic assistance. so navigation services through the airport. So only by asking those passengers, British in this case with Heathrow, they saw a reduction of numbers of wheelchairs. And trust me, those numbers can be very, very huge, especially coming from certain jurisdictions. And if we have to guess if those passengers are really disabled, then it's a problem of safety when these passengers are traveling on board of the aircraft. Now there are indications specific to the codes used, that is WCHR, that tell us that it may not be a disability in the formal definition, but are passengers who need some kind of assistance. And we covered one part. Now I give the floor to Mark de Laurentiis from the Italian Civil Aviation Authority, because they have interesting insights specific to advanced notification, and Mark is going to bring us through the projects that they have launched in Italy specific on accessibility, and it will focus as well on numbers that they got thanks to advanced notification. Up to you, Mark. Thank you so much.
That's not the updated, but it's okay. No, doesn't mind. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Director of Protection of Passenger Rights of the Italian Civil Aviation Authority. And ENAC acts as a national enforcement body for the European Regulation 1107 concerning the rights of passengers with disability and reduced mobility when traveling by air. Let's start from our organization, because we have a specific department dealing with passenger rights, and in particular with passengers with disabilities and reduced mobility. But we also have an airport department at each Italian airport where we have specific quality and PRM inspectors located at the airports. And that's very important in order to enforce the activity. As an enforcement body, we carry out audits and inspections at each Italian airport, and just to verify and check all the parking lots, the infrastructures, facilities, guest rooms, call points, equipment, procedures, and of course training, which is very important. ENAC also joined a couple of years ago the European Civil Aviation Conference initiative called Quality Assessment Program, which is aimed at ensuring an harmonization in the PRM service assistance at European airports in compliance with the ECAC Doc 30, Part 1, Section 5. In addition, no work? Oh, okay. In addition, in 2021, back with the red one. Another one? Okay. In 2021, ENAC published a technical regulation in order to ensure that children under 12 years old and all PRMs are seated free of charge next to their parents or accompanying person. It's in force in Italy, this kind of regulation. And starting from 2022, ENAC started to organize every year in May a workshop on PRM matters, involving and inviting all the main relevant stakeholders dealing with the PRMs every day in the aviation sector, just to talk together and to and trying to analyze the issues, the problems, and try to find common solutions. Since then, ENAC created the Italian Disability Advisory Board, which is a very simple idea. We put together around the same table all the stakeholders dealing with PRM. So we invited the airport managing bodies, the airlines. For the first time, we invited the travel agencies and tour operators federation and associations. We have IATA. We have also representatives from the main national association dealing with passengers with disability and reduced mobility. And we also have representatives from the Italian Ministry for Disabilities. And inside the Italian Disability Advisory Board, we are focusing on several topics, such as the main one is the pre-notification. As my friend Xavier said before, pre-notification is crucial for the system, for the entire system, for the airport managing body, for the airlines, and for the passengers themselves. So we are working on pre-notification, but also we are also working on disability card, the European disability card, on training for tour operators and travel agencies, on assistance dogs, and on lithium batteries or wheelchairs. One of the main results we had with the Italian Disability Advisory Board is a project called One Click Away, which is, once again, a very simple idea. We try to put together the 3 Italian airlines working together in order to simplify the web page, the web section, dedicated to PRMs. And we did, in 4 months. In 4 months. Now, the 3 Italian airlines have the same layout, the same contents, the same terminology, and the passenger may find very easily all the relevant information, the useful information also for pre-notification, by one click on the homepage, by clicking on the wheelchair icon on the homepage. And let me thank also our friend Eric Lipp from Open Doors, because he validated the English version of the One Click Away. So thank you, Eric. And just to give you an idea, before the One Click Away project, just to find on ITA Airways website the dedicated section for PRMs, passengers need to click 6 times, 6 pages. And at the end of the day, it was not so easy to find it. So now this is the One Click Away icon and the web page of the airlines. And just recently, Ryanair, just few weeks ago, which is the first airline in Italy for volume of passengers, has joined the One Click Away. And we are also talking with other airlines such as Vueling, Wizz Air, EasyJet, Volotea, Lufthansa, and so on. And we hope many other airlines will join this very important initiative. With Italian Disability Advisory Board, we also work on training, and we organized several webinars for travel agencies and tour operator staff, aiming at raising the awareness about the importance of the pre-notification and a correct use of IATA codes. And we had more than 600 of staff trained by our webinars. Let me just give you some figures about pre-notification and the work done by the Italian Disability Advisory Board. Yeah, that's not updated, but it's not a problem because I collected the last figures just before to come here. So I have the complete picture now of the entire 2023. And as you can see, we were at 68% in 2022. And in 2023, we reached 71%. So we had a plus 3% of increase in terms of pre-notification. And that's a very huge result, bearing in mind that the PRMs increased from less than 1 million in 2022. And in 2023, the PRMs welcomed by the Italian airports were 1.4 million. So it's a very important result. Thanks to IATA, we shared our initiatives at the IATA World Passenger Symposium. 2 years ago, we were in Bahrain. And last October, we were in Chicago, where we shared our initiatives. And on the international level, ENAC was selected by the European Commission to support the Civil Aviation Authority of Jordan, the CARC, to implement and enforce the EU Regulation 1107 concerning the rights of passengers when traveling by air. And we shared our best practice, both national and European, and it was very successful. Just to conclude, in 2015, ENAC initiated and implemented a dedicated project for autistic people traveling by air. And today, this project is available at all Italian airports and allows autistic people to familiarize with the airport environment in advance. Because as you know, autistic people are bothered by new places, unfamiliar places where there is a lot of noise, colors, and so on, like the airport is. In March 2022, ITA Airways, the Italian airline, joined the ENAC initiative for autistic passengers, offering individuals with autism and their families the chance to experience a flight simulation at the training center of Rome Fiumicino Airport. And since the launch of the initiative, more than 600 autistic passengers have participated in a pre-flight simulation at Rome Fiumicino Airport. And we are very proud of this project, of course. And here there is a short video on this project. No. There is a link. Yeah. after this pre-flight experience, the boy in the video, who is an autistic boy, Italian autistic boy, whose name is Pablo, he was able to fly by himself from Catania Airport to Milan Airport. And just to conclude, the previous one, in June 2023, ENAC was invited by the Italian Ministry for Disabilities to join the 16th session of the United Nations Conference in New York to present the project on autism. And I had the privilege of presenting the project at the United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. So what does this presentation and best practices that were shared by Mark told us? That collaboration is important between the state regulators and the aviation industry with the inclusion of persons with disabilities. This tells us that through advanced notification, so through the collaboration also from the passengers to provide information in advance to the airline industry, we can reduce and provide a better service to the passengers themselves. A service that is not necessarily a wheelchair service, because for Pablo, it would be unthinkable for him to be seated on a wheelchair because Pablo has autism. And for a person with autism, it's very difficult for keep them, it's not dignified for them to help them navigate the airport through a wheelchair. I have witnessed this myself, where people were in pain, especially children with autism, who were forced to stay on the wheelchair because there was no other service associated to the navigation, airport navigation for them. So this helps me to introduce the next intervention from the airport. So we will hear from Hilal what is her perspective on one-size-fits-all solution, or maybe not. Hilal, up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again, everybody. And I would like to start with thanks to Linda for inviting me for this workshop. And I want to thank to all organizers here for this such a good organization. I don't have any slides. You have just me. I know you are tired, but fortunately, maybe you can leave here with concrete action plans in your pocket when you leave here. As Linda has already told that, the number is getting higher and higher for people who need assistance service. And she also shared the reasons why they request this assistance service. And from airport's perspective, we mostly focused on, as I said in previous panel, we focused on providing the independent experience for all our guests. Because if you provide this, maybe they will not need to request this assistance service. For instance, when we met together with blind people, especially they told us that, please provide us some navigation tools or any other tools. We would like to experience the airport by our own, not with an assistant. Because if I get this assistance service, they cannot go to restaurant, they cannot go shopping areas or any other, they cannot use any other airport services. Just they go together with assistance service. Even they can walk, they have to sit in a wheelchair and go with this wheelchair. So this was really a pain point for them, not to have another choices for them to experience the airport independently. So, for instance, what we have done, we improved our mobile application as they can track their flight and they do not need to asks someone to check their flight status. If they track their flight on our mobile application, they will get the notification when the flight gate is open or if there is any change. They directly will get this notification and they do not need to follow the flight information systems. Or we have lot steps application, indoor navigation application. By using this application, they can locate themselves, they can explore their around, and also they can get voiced direction when, wherever they want to go, in restaurants, in shopping area, or their gate. They can use this mobile application and they can experience the airport independently. When it comes to assistance service, first I would like to say that standardization is really important because, for instance, in the airports of European countries and even in Dubai airport, there's a single company who provides this service. But in our case, in Turkey, we have 4 different ground handling companies, and each they have their own wheelchairs and own employees. And sometimes the service they have provided are not the same. Like one of them have electric wheelchairs and also manual wheelchairs, or they have different type of wheelchairs, but one of them has only manual wheelchairs and no different types, just a single type. So it's really hard for people to know, to realize how they will get the service, in which conditions, with which wheelchair. Really confusing, because it changes in each country, in each airport, and even in each company. So what we have heard from the people with disabilities, the first traveling is really hard for them, first experience in an airport. But then, as they get familiarized, it becomes easier them to find their way. So it's really important to have this standardization, as they, for instance, someone will travel from Heathrow Airport to Istanbul Airport. If the system is same, then they will be familiarized in Heathrow Airport, so it will be easy to make the same things in Istanbul Airport. But when they have different types of systems, okay, they should know how they will get this service in Heathrow, how they will get this service in Istanbul Airport, or with this airline or the other airline. All have different information, and this is another challenge for them actually. And the other challenge is airports are complex places. For instance, we have airlines, ground handling companies, shopping areas, restaurants. For instance, we have ID cards in airport, and now in Istanbul Airport, 80,000 people have these ID cards. And people tend to ask their questions when they saw this ID card in someone, but they don't know if this employee is responsible from what, if this employee knows the other, if they can answer their questions. This is another challenge for them. So we always have to collaborate with ourselves, with our stakeholders, to have the right information to make people know about our services or other processes. They should always get the right answer at the right place. And this is why we should always be together to find the answers, not only under the airport, but also across the airports, airlines, all of us have to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hilal. So probably we should investigate route, different lanes and involve, as you said, different airports to find the solutions that are feasible for, at the end, for the passengers, because at the end, the one who has to get the best experience is the passenger himself. I would now give the floor to my friend Mouza. She will bring us through the perspective from the handling perspective, and now she's dealing with this issue of use and misuse of wheelchair services. Thank you, Mouza.
Thank you, Linda. I can see that the topic is the most I love topic. Day and night we will be talking about the same. We will not end up from this, but I will just use that Linda has already mentioned with regards to the growth, that the statistic of how the increase of the request of the wheelchair request has been actually growing year by year, almost like 20%. And this is one of the most challenged element for the ground handling with the growth actually. Also, you don't know any prediction or any forecast how many you are expecting for the year. And this will be giving you a difficult challenge, like how you can plan for your resource, for your equipment, to help actually for assisting wheelchair passengers or wheelchair requests. This is one of, I will not talk about so many things because actually I can see a repetitive element has been already said with regards to the same subject, but this is one of the main major challenge that already I know that it's experienced from ground handling perspective. And this is actually, sometimes we look for so many solutions, but it's not really easy at the moment to have some smart or technology that would give you the forecast for next year, so you know actually how many. Even though that we have in general that population is aging, and that's what in IATA study they have done, and how the increase of wheelchair request. Now we know that also one of the challenge from the ground handling, also the request is not usually for genuine wheelchair passenger or wheelchair passenger with a disability. Most of the, and this was a touch point in so many presentations you have seen already, that they request because of the layout of the facility. I mean, the airport is difficult. The distance is far from each other, from buildings, especially for those short connection passenger. And also the infrastructure, we have like one terminal up, one terminal down, so it's not really easy to navigate. And what you don't know also, I have seen also in certain challenge that when you go and traveling for the other airport, in the website, it's not easy to know what kind of service you are expecting in the next airport. So it will be like blank and blind spot for the passenger, to know, and they will be scared actually to what kind of service they will have, and that's why they said it's better to request for a wheelchair, which is one assistant staff, he will take me through, and it will be more easier for me. Now, also one of the things that we experience also, in case if we have like a reservation data example, but when we have experienced the actual amount of requests, we have a lot of last-minute requests also, who will come in the airport and finally they said, no, I need a wheelchair. We had experienced almost 30% of increase of requests of last minute. And the problem also with the reservation for, wheelchair, that some of the passengers, they do the reservation either online or from the agency from outside. And unfortunately, I don't know, I've never seen anything touch on with regards to the agency when you're actually booking a ticket from outside, that they are well known about, they have to ask the passenger, okay, maybe you said, if we are booking on British Airways online, they are very much well aware that what kind of question they have to ask the passenger in case if he's saying that I have some kind of issue and I need special request. But I'm not sure really the agency of outside around the world, let's say in any country, they really well known what kind of question they have to ask and what kind of service they have to ask, because this will be another challenge, because people now they want to use technology and easy way of reservation, which will be another challenge for us also as a ground handling. Also, one of the issue also we experience always in the ground handling, the clash of service. So we don't know the passenger what time they will be reporting at the airport. We might have so many passengers reporting at the airport at the same time. All of them, they wanted the same service, but different flight timing, but all of them, they want the service right now. So we cannot tell the passenger, we have a priority, this flight is departing before you. He wants his wheelchair and he wants the request and he wanted to go inside, navigate the duty free and everything. So if the ground handling have kind of technology saying that this passenger he will be receiving or how amount the passenger they receive, maybe they can do the service or make preparation for the passenger who's coming on the wheel, requesting for a wheelchair in advance. And the other point, which has been, it's one valid and very important point, also the pre-notification. This is one of the main pain point for the ground handling as well. Pre-notification actually is one of the main pain point for us because now some of the passengers, they have really a very specific request and a very special request. And when they come over here, they are not educated enough to say that it might need a lot of time for us to prepare our staff. Like example, if there is a sea handling manual, it will require specific staff, to come and handle them. So if we not known about the request in advance, it will give us a lot of challenge to prepare and make the service more seamless and better for this passenger. And this is what they have already pre-touched in most of the presentation, which is one of the important, I think, globally. Now, we were saying that as a ground handling, we might, and this is what we do usually, one of this event, which is very important that we share the best practice, and it will give us more information and knowledge how we can, if we have the same problem, and I can see that the issues and the pain point is globally, it's not like, in one airport. So when we share the information and exchange the information, we learn from each other how we can fix the problem, because we might have an issue which is not there in British Airways, but they might having the issue which we have the solution already. And this is really a great session, which is actually can we exchange the information and the solution. And I think also Linda, she just said in the last session after from the Italian also experience that some of the passengers, they want a basic service. So, and this is actually, it's having a big percentage. If we have kind of basic service like example meet and assist, I'm not saying this is the solution, but a lot of passengers, they wanted also only the service, somebody to guide them. Sometimes we offer a buggy for the elderly passenger who can actually, if they see the buggy, they will not request for a wheelchair, and this can really relieve a little bit of the pressure on the wheelchair request. And one of the also, I think also is not there much still, awareness and education for the passenger themselves. How to request, what exactly the request, and what is actually the SSR code, which has been the right request. Because sometimes we do face passenger coming with a code S, but actually they can climb the stairs, so they don't need this much of service. So this is also, it's good if we can now start giving like a session and awareness for the passenger outside and for, society to say, this is the right code if you want to really be served properly. So this is the right code to use it in the airport when you want to do a reservation. And definitely one of the also nice and good one, I will leave it for Conor, that we can use the apps, which can also have a lot of information and good communication with the passenger when they want to come to the airport or they want to book a service, which will have a lot of information and requirement and element, which can be help, the passenger to navigate and to understand exactly what they're supposed to request. Yeah.
Thank you. So this open up for Conor to provide us what are the solutions from a technology perspective and how actually this technology can assist us, especially on the misuse of wheelchair assistance services.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Linda. And I suppose thanks to all of you who are still here. I appreciate that. It has been quite a long day, so I promise you I won't take too long moving through this presentation. So yeah, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be talking about elevating PRM operations. We're going to focus on the misuse of service, passengers who wish to self-mobilise, and the role that technology plays in improving the overall process. So in terms of accessible aviation, there's a lot of moving parts to actually get the end result of a passenger moving through the airport under assistance. So when we look at it, you have your airlines, your airports, your passengers, your service providers, and your regulators. So these will be your key stakeholders in the whole passenger journey. You have technology, equipment, infrastructure, and trained staff, which all play a part in ensuring that the journey is seamless and frictionless. And then you have collaboration, communication, and synergy. So collaboration and synergy, often they can be used in the same kind of, people consider them the same thing. There's a big difference between collaboration and synergy. Collaboration is what we're doing here today. We're all working towards the one goal. Whereas with synergy is when we actually work together to achieve a better outcome than what collaboration would do. So that's just what I wanted to mention on collaboration and synergy. And synergy is something that we should really focus on moving forward. With that, obviously there's a lot of challenges to the excellence in PRM operations, majority of which have been discussed today by panel members, and I'm sure they've been discussed outside as well. Yes, thank you, Linda. So yeah, there's complex logistics. Yeah, of course, no worries. So yeah, there's complex logistics. We've talked about non-pre-advised passengers, the misuse of service, regulatory compliance, infrastructure, again, that can be difficult to navigate. There's variable passenger needs. There's limited tech integration at the moment. Staff training can prove to be difficult, especially when the need for staff, it needs to be hired quite quickly. Passenger communication, resource allocation and scheduling, and collaboration barriers. So looking at the misuse of service and self-mobilization, the misuse of service, we are currently facilitating that in some sense by a per booking processes. A lot of the times when passengers seek to book assistance, they end up having to select a type of assistance that doesn't necessarily suit their needs. We see this when passengers maybe who don't speak the native language in the country they are departing from, they would often book wheelchair assistance when that's not necessarily something that they would need. So options for assistance outside of wheelchair booking is limited, and it's something that I know we're all working towards. Can the passenger self-mobilise? So a lot of the time passengers actually would wish to self-mobilise or have maybe a family member assist them. So this is information that we should be able to capture from the passenger before they travel, and we should also encourage as well. What facilities and equipment can we actually put in place? Is there equipment that we could put in place to allow passengers to self-mobilise? Can we maybe introduce more wheelchairs within the airport for passengers to take themselves or for family members to assist them? Or in Schiphol Airport, while I was on my way here to Dubai, I noticed they have passenger buggies which can carry up to 8 passengers at a time. And again, these can be very useful for reducing the number of staff that are needed on any given day, and also, most importantly, it's to free up the one-to-one service for the passengers who actually require the wheelchair assistance. So I'll speak a little bit about the strategic role of technology. In terms of mobile app integration, Mouza briefly mentioned it there at the end of her presentation. So PRMAssist, the company that I'm here and representing today, so we do operate a mobile app, and we believe that mobile apps can enhance the passenger experience in terms of receiving information from the passenger. So when we talk about the booking process, a lot of the time, or the passenger experience, a lot of the time what we'll do is we'll talk about the passenger experience from when the passenger enters the airport and when they get on the plane. And we don't really focus too much on the passenger the minute they book their ticket and what goes on in between them getting to the airport. And I know Xavier had mentioned it with British Airways and what they're doing in terms of contacting the passenger in between, but there is a lot that mobile apps can do for this in terms of providing information to the passenger prior to them arriving to the airport, and also what kind of information we can harvest from the passenger to ensure that the service provided for them when they arrive at the airport on the day is the best possible service that they can receive. In terms of operational streamlining, I will talk a little bit about One ID by IATA in a couple of minutes, but there's potential there for us to streamline the operations and the actual passenger process to make it far more frictionless. We want to make data-driven decisions, and technology allows us to do this. So we can utilize insights for improved operational efficiency. We want to revolutionize, or technology can revolutionize the passenger experience. So can we make it more personalized? Can it be more efficient? In terms of connected services, the SSR codes, can they be changed? Do we need SSR codes, or would we be better off using the SSR codes purely just for operational reasons and maybe having a better way that the passengers can select the type of assistance that they need? And then lastly, there is airline integration for advanced data, and I will go into that now on one of the products that we've recently introduced. So at PRMAssist, one of the products that we've actually just launched today with our first airline, Aer Lingus, which is a native airline in Ireland, is a product called PRM Connect. So the product PRM Connect, it's really aimed at enhancing or providing the bookings that are within an airline's reservation system to the airline or the airport as early as possible. For those of you that don't know, if I'm to book a flight for next summer with any airline around the world, they only provide that booking to the airport or to the ground handler or service provider 36 to 48 hours in advance, and in some cases it can be even less than this. With the growing number of PRM passengers, like Linda highlighted earlier on, it's not really feasible anymore to have an operation trying to plan, roster and recruit on 36 to 48 hours notice. So what PRM Connect does, it's an API that sits in the back of an airline reservation system. And when it sits in the back of the airline reservation system, it listens out for bookings that are coming into that reservation system. So now when a passenger goes onto an airline's website or mobile app and they place a booking and they tick a box or they select the type of assistance that they require, as opposed to going into that reservation system and sitting there until 36 hours in advance of the departure, they now are taken by PRM Connect and are put directly into their reservation system. So they have far more visibility as to what's going to be coming down the line in terms of passenger volume, which allows them to roster and recruit a lot more efficiently as well. The biggest benefit of the API is that it's actually going to work two ways. So not only will it allow us to pull passenger bookings from the airline reservation system, but it's also going to allow us to input bookings into the airline's reservation system. So the benefit of this will be the likes of travel agents, like Xavier mentioned earlier on, and third-party apps that passengers will book their flights through. We can actually allow them to use our API to access the airline's reservation system and update passenger bookings. And that is the main goal of this. The PRM Connect API isn't purely just for PRMAssist and what we're doing. It's to open up the API to allow everyone to use it so that we can improve passenger pre-notification. In terms of our ecosystem and the products that we have, I've briefly mentioned our mobile app. The app is aimed at passengers who are struggling to book assistance with their airline, and it's to try and capture those passengers when they're at the point of booking, and capturing their booking and giving it to the airport as soon as possible. We then have the PRMAssist portal, which is really just a data analytic engine that allows the airport to view insights into passenger volume and forecasts, but it also allows them to actually interact with the passenger, as you'll see there with the PRMAssist chat feature. The PRMAssist chat feature was developed really with the thought of that period between when the passenger books their flight and when they arrive at the airport, and what type of information does the passenger need before then. So with the PRMAssist chat feature, it allows the passengers to actually chat directly with the airport or the ground handler to ask any questions that they might have about the journey on the day. So yeah, I'd mentioned earlier on just about IATA 1ID. So I suppose with IATA 1ID, there's some possible benefits to the PRM operation that kind of come about indirectly. So it's going to be a seamless, improved passenger experience. It's going to eliminate the repetitive processes of your taking out the boarding pass or taking out your passport, which we have to do multiple times throughout our airport journey. Ultimately, yeah, it's going to enable the passenger to arrive at the airport ready to fly in pretty much every scenario that there is. Other, I suppose, benefits that we could have from it is staffing efficiencies. So there's going to be increased capacity by reducing time spent on the manual ID checks. And then with this, if we can actually have an airport where IATA 1ID is in operation, it's going to provide more space efficiency. So machines that are used to possibly scan boarding passes or passport checks, these can actually be removed. So yeah, in summary, the stakeholders that we had mentioned at the very start, and all of us here, we need to work together. We need to create more synergies to achieve a better outcome for accessible aviation. Technology, I believe, will play a crucial role, and we need to embrace it moving forward. And also the pace at which we embrace technology is important. A lot of the time when we look at new technologies, we can be slow to, I suppose, introduce them. It's important that we do our diligence, of course, but I believe that the pace of introducing technology will be quite important. The interconnection of stakeholders and the tools, like we said, will create the synergies for us. Collaboration and technology will be the key drivers for success. And lastly, and it's just a point that I know Eric had mentioned it earlier on in terms of nothing about us without us, it's that the PRM passenger themselves are vital for testing, implementing and guiding the technology development. So when we initially went off to develop our mobile application, it was the first thing that we done was to approach some of the local user groups within our area and other areas around Europe and around the world to ask them what exactly is it that they would want in a mobile application. So I thought that would be a good point to finish on. Thank you.
So technology, and with this we concluded. And here we wanted to give you some, first of all, thanks to my speakers, because each of them, they brought a different angle related to this issue. If you haven't heard that this is an issue, the huge number of wheelchair assistance requests, you will hear, because I can tell you it's on top of the CEO's agendas. So we wanted to get some recommendations, and probably we can include these recommendations in whatever will come out of this event. So to understand what the customer needs, what do they want? Do they really want a wheelchair? Do they want a different kind of assistance? What is in the regulation?